It is Wednesday, my dudes, which means it's time for another First Thoughts and Initial Impressions Epic 7 video. This one will be on Eligos, the newest 5-star that was just shown this morning earlier over on Stove. As always, I will be giving you my 2 cents on the character. Do I think they're good? Where I'd play them? What kinds of equipment sets I would use them on? And what kinds of artifacts? All of those things that you have come to expect from me in these initial impressions videos. If you do enjoy this style of content, please consider leaving a like on this video. And if you really enjoy it, please consider subscribing to my channel. It does help me out here a ton, and I would really appreciate it. As always, let's start this off with Eligos' S3.
You want to know who I am? It's probably better if you don't know. It's unfortunate, but you need to disappear. From now on, we're running things around here.
I think that's a pretty sick looking S3 animation, if I do say so myself. But to be fair, Eligos is a pretty sick looking dude. He's been in the game since the very beginning, and I think a lot of us were wondering when we'd finally get him, and now he's finally here. In the English dub of Epic 7, Eligos is voiced by William Salyers, who you may know as Rigby from Regular Show, but if you listen hard enough, you can definitely hear his voice in various other video games, from things like Insomniac's Spider-Man to even Final Fantasy VII Remake. Taking a look at Eligos' stats, he is a Fire Ranger of the Virgo zodiac symbol, which means he shares a stat line with Lidica as well as Pavel. Taking a closer look at his stats, he has 1,283 attack, which is quite high for a 5-star, especially a Ranger. 4,976 health, which is below average. 124 speed, which is incredibly impressive. 536 defense, which is quite poor. 15% critical hit chance. 150% critical hit damage. 3% dual attack chance. And no starting effectiveness or effect resistance. Imprint release is attack percentage for 2 members of the team. And imprint concentration is critical hit chance, which is pretty much the best concentration you can have on a character. So if you are wanting to build this character as a hybrid opener / damage dealer, then you're probably going to want to pick up some imprints to make that a reality. Otherwise, the standard release is just fine. Moving on to Eligos' skills, let's start with his skill 3, which is Cloak and Trigger, which is, I guess, a funny way of the old adage, cloak and dagger, because instead of, pulling the dagger out of the cloak, he's just going to shoot you in the face with a gun. You acquire 3 souls upon use, and it has a 4 to 5 turn cooldown, depending on Malagora. Attacks the enemy with a pistol, dispelling 2 buffs before inflicting target, and decrease defense to the target for 2 turns, and decreasing their combat readiness by 35%. You could soul burn it for the cost of 20 souls to ignore effect resistance. It's a really strong opening skill. To dispel debuff is great for characters like Zio, who we just did a guide on. So obviously you know that is a great opening skill because it gets around immunity, and then it has some applications in the mid or late game if games actually go that long. On top of that, the character has 124 base speed, so he's probably going to be taking first. He's faster than Conquer Aurelius even. So that already puts him in a pretty good spot and kind of lets you know right away what this character's deal is. He's very fast. He's probably going to be taking the first turn, unless like somebody like Pera or maybe like a Cid or an Assassin Cid goes before him. So those are the kinds of characters that are like a little bit faster than him, but he's faster than Conquer Aurelius, who's already one of the premier openers in the format. And again, to buff Dispel is very, very good, as we've seen on a character like Zio, because it basically just sidesteps the immunity set entirely. Now, where things get even crazier is, again, target buff here, the debuff, and then the defense break. Whoever Eligos hits with this S3 is pretty much doomed. They are super not taking a turn, and the next form of damage that goes into them is going to hurt like hell. The fact that he also has the soul burn that ignores effect resistance means if you put a book on his team, that's guaranteed. I really wish that they would stop giving people soul burn, ignore effect resistance. I get that they want characters to do the thing, but it makes for a less interactive gameplay experience in my opinion. So I probably would have had the soul burn do something else. I don't really think we needed a character that bypasses a whole set, is faster than the premier opener in the game, and has the 2 best damage increasing debuffs plus a CR pushback. I don't think we needed to give that character a soul burn on top of that. So if it's not obvious, Cloak and Trigger is a very, very good skill for this character. Moving on to the S2, it is a passive called the Cleaner. Again, we've kind of established this character as kind of like got that mafioso vibe. The passive reads, when an ally except for the caster defeats an enemy, increases the attack of Eligos for 2 turns before activating Time Bomb against the enemy with the highest attack. Can only be activated once every 2 to 3 turns depending on Malagora. Time Bomb says it attacks the enemy with a bomb and grants Perception to the caster for 2 turns. When the caster's speed is greater than the target's speed, increase damage dealt proportional to the difference up to a maximum of 200%. Perception, in case you forgot, is that undispellable buff that gives 15% critical hit chance and critical hit damage. Characters like Closer Charles and Violet have had this in the past. When you take a look at Perception, the imprint starts to make a little bit more sense on this character. 15% to start, 15% from Perception, some amount from the imprint. Slap a critical hit chance necklace on this guy, and he's off to the races. He'll be doing decent damage, even if you don't actually have him built as a damage dealer thanks to his high base attack. Breaking down the rest of the S2 from the top, when the ally except for the caster defeats an enemy, increases Eligos' attack for 2 turns. That's probably happening because, as we discussed, 124 base speed, faster than Conquer Lilius, probably going to be taking turn 1, and his S3, Cloak and Trigger, basically sets somebody up, denies their opener, and makes them very vulnerable, super easy to get killed. So if you haven't figured it out by now, not only is he an opener, he sets up some very aggressive strategies like cleave or just aggro drafting in general. Anything with defense break on it and target is probably going to end up dying. So you're probably going to end up getting that activation of Time Bomb. And Time Bomb, we need to see the numbers on it, but you can see here it has when the caster speed is greater than the target speed, increases damage dealt proportional to the difference up to a maximum of 200%. That is the same language that is used on characters in the past like Straze for his Star Extinction move. So it's probably going to hit like a truck. Need to see the multipliers, but it's probably just going to outright kill the character on their team with the highest attack. Because when you think about it, this character's probably, 300 plus speed? What's the highest attack character? Like, they show in the video, I believe, Senya. Senya's 170, 180 speed. So, you have 130 speed difference. I want to see the range on this. We knew from Straze, the low end would be 24, 2500 attack. And then, the sweet spot where you actually want to be killing or should be killing characters in one hit is around 3850 attack. I want to know the speed range. What's the number where I get the maximum amount? Is it 40 speed, 70 speed, 100 speed, 150 speed? I want to know that number. That is going to be huge for this. But if it plays out like it does in the video, where essentially this character stops the opener, their opener gets killed, and then Time Bomb kills another character. Yeesh. Character's disgusting. Just really, really strong for, again, very fast players, very aggressive players. Moving on to the basic skill, it is Point Blank Shot. Attacks the enemy by dashing towards them. When the caster is granted Perception, meaning when you get it off Time Bomb, triggers a dual attack from the ally with the highest attack. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's speed. Again, solidifying, if it's not obvious, this character is an opener. You're almost always going to be playing this character on a speed set. No real exceptions. This is actually really strong S1 because if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing with the character, it's like a better version of Conqueror Lilius' S1. So there's no bad skills on this character. It's an opener that denies an opponent's opener, potentially sets up a kill, should give you a guaranteed kill if you are comboing off correctly, and then to finish off the job, you get arguably the most impactful skill 1 that they've ever made in this game, which is something like Cerise or Lilius. So again, no bad skills on this character. Now, I think that this S1, one thing I want to touch on here is the fact that it has flavor with the character. And what I mean by flavor is how the character is in the lore is pretty much how the character is in gameplay. His S1 here, Point Blank Shot, actually calls the highest attack character. Most Dagger Sakaar characters are high attack characters, like your Assassin Sids, your Assassin Collies. Even Haste has fairly high attack. So I think that that is super cool that the leader of Dagger Sakaar synergizes incredibly well with all of the members of Dagger Sakaar. When you think about it, it's really cool top-down design. And what I mean by top-down design is we have something already, we'll build a character around it, as opposed to we have this idea for a kit, which is bottom-up, let's build a character around it. So it's the other way around. Like, they looked at the character, looked at what he does in the lore, and built a character that would be very, I should say a kit that would be very fitting with that character. That, to me, is so cool. I absolutely love it when games do that. I think Eligos, at the end of the day, is a really strong character, and he's a very cool character. That said, I think he is the wrong character right now in the current state of Epic 7. Right now, turn 2, at least to me, is viable, but it feels significantly worse than just being a speed demon. Eligos punishes players who cannot take the turn pretty hard, because right now, our only real ways of dealing with speed demons are characters like Sage Ball and Cezanne or Zio. And Eligos is a ranger, which means he's probably going to be played on Guiding Light, which means the Zio angle is non-existent, which gives us only really a character like Sage Ball and Cezanne to reasonably and consistently stop a draft that contains Eligos. Otherwise, you're just pick counter set characters or Elbrus Ritual Sword characters and pray. And that doesn't ever really feel super great, if I'm being honest with you. So yeah, you're going to be playing this character on speed set. You're going to be playing him on Guiding Light. And he's, again, super, super fast. So yeah. On top of that, unlike Command Model Leica, who is a fast opener on Guiding Light, Eligos, if you remember from his S3, gets around immunity. So yeah, what I'm trying to say at the end of the day is I think Eligos is most likely going to be meta. I'd be very shocked if this character was not played on ladder, unless he just has absolutely awful scaling, or there's just something I completely missed. 124 base speed, access to Guiding Light, Dispel to get around immunity, which is Leica's biggest weakness, sets up most of the cleave and aggressive characters that are already seeing play, still good in aggro drafts if you are looking to pivot into that. So you could start standard and then go into Eligos, and it probably will still work out because of how powerful his S1 actually is and how well-rounded the rest of the kit actually is. He just checks every single box. So to me, this character feels like a pull. If you have a lot of speed gear, you are an aggressive player. He's just really, really good, at least on paper. Let's now quickly take a look here at his artifact, which is going to be an offer you can't refuse, not to be confused with the movie line, and certainly not to be confused with one of the best counter spells that Magic has printed in a very long time. 1 mana to counter a non-creature spell, even with the drawback of 2 treasures, is absolutely incredible. Anyways, the artifact here in question, an offer you can't refuse, when attacking with a single target attack, penetrates the target's defense by 10 to 20% based on the artifact's level. When the caster defeats an enemy with a single attack, increases combat readiness of the ally with the highest combat readiness except for the caster by 10 to 20% based, again, on artifact level. So this isn't a bad artifact on paper. The problem comes in asking yourself this question. When would I ever play it? Why would you play this over Guiding Light? And you'll see that's a theme in a lot of the videos I've been doing lately, especially ones involving Ranger. Why play it over Guiding Light? There's no good answer to Guiding Light currently. Guiding Light dictates a lot of the pace of high-level matches. Guiding Light is just kind of broken. If your character has synergy with Guiding Light, you're just going to play the Guiding Light. And even if you wanted that combat readiness push-up, right? This gives 20% to one member at max at a 5-star rarity with a little bit of extra damage on the user. You could just play Sachet, which is 16% to the team on a kill, and probably get similar or better performance. So it's not better than Guiding Light, And if you wanted to forego Guiding Light because you're confident you have the first turn and you want to play a very aggressive strategy that basically just takes all the turns and make sure your opponent doesn't get any, I think Sachet also enables that strategy a bit better. So to me, an offer you can't refuse just feels like it falls a little flat. Again, on paper, it doesn't even seem that bad. 20% defense pen is very good. 20% CR is also quite nice. It's just that when you compare it to the other two playable options for characters of Eligos' archetype, they're probably playing, again, either Guiding Light or Sachets on the character, and I just don't think there's any room for an offer you can't refuse. But those are just my thoughts on Eligos and the artifact. Let's jump over now and talk about the two new exclusive equipments. To round out the video, let's talk about the two new exclusive equipment that were shown, one for Flan as well as one for Sinful Angelica. Neither of these characters I felt like really needed an exclusive equipment, but it is nice that they ended up getting them. We'll talk about Sinful Angelica's first, which is Best Friend Pippi. It gives 5 to 10 speed. If you've watched any of my content in the past, I always point out when a character gets 10 speed on an exclusive equipment, it's definitely something you should take note of. Now, there are a couple of things I want to talk about with the 10 speed. The first of which is Sinful Angelica is a very strong character right now in Guild War offense, and this 10 speed definitely helps take the burden off that, because when you're trying to play her as a counter to specific Guild War defenses, you do want her to be quite a bit faster than you'd find her in, say, a Wyvern 13 one-shot build. So getting 10 extra speed does make that build a little bit more accessible, and for those people who already have the build, the Sinful Angelica is going to be much faster, maybe 265, even 270 now, if you're really booking it and having a lot of speed on the character. So that's really, really nice. Regardless of the other effects on the exclusive equipment, 10 speed definitely helps this character in the Guild Wars for sure. I don't know if it's enough to make the character super amazing in World Arena, but we'll see. If you do have a Wyvern 13 one-shot already tuned, you're probably going to not want to pick up this exclusive equipment unless you really feel like retuning your entire Sinful Angelica. I'll probably pick one up, but I probably won't use it for my Wyvern Sinful Angelica. As for the actual effects here, the first one makes it so that Soul Harvest, that is her S2 passive, with Soul Harvest's effect, when an enemy dies while the caster is immortal, increases the combat radius of all allies by 15%. Combat radius increase effect can only be activated once per turn. So this is pretty good if you were trying to play her as a very aggressive speed plus attack buffer for different PvP game modes. It's kind of like having a mini Sachet for you if you think about it. So yeah, that's pretty much what this one is for. This is definitely the PvP option. The second one, Soul Harvest, increases Soul Harvest amount recovered by 20%. I don't really see why you'd want to choose this one over the first one. Maybe it might have some kind of Abyss applications that I'm not thinking of right now off the top of my head, but overall I think the first one is better. And then the third one is on her S3 Dark Salvation, increases effectiveness of the caster for 2 turns when using Dark Salvation. This is probably the one that you're going to want to use if you are playing Sinful Angelica in a Wyvern build, because it does give you the attack down, which does synergize really well with Sigret and her S3 Guillotine. So if you're trying to build Angelica for Wyvern, you want the third one. If you're trying to play her in any facet of PvP, you want the first one. And I think that the second one is just going to end up being a hard skip most of the time. Moving on to Flan's exclusive equipment, it is Foreign Ministry's Baton. Increases the effectiveness by 8 to 16% on Flan, which is obviously very nice because she only really cares about 2 stats, speed and effectiveness. Thank goodness they did not give this character speed, because the people who play Flan really play Flan, and she is always zooming. You definitely see some of these higher legend players use a 310 or faster Flan a lot of the times. I've been surprised more than once to see Flan outspeed some of the fastest characters in the game. So giving her speed would not have been a good idea. But effectiveness here is pretty good. Moving on to the actual effects. The first one is for her S1 Communication Breakdown. Increases the buff dispel chance by 25%. That's solid. Nothing amazing, but solid nonetheless. Data Monopoly is her S2. Increases the combat readiness by an additional 10% when using Data Monopoly. I feel like in this spot you're already using her. The fact that she already gets such a large combat readiness push, this is just extra, but I'm not really super big on it. The third one here, advantageous deal, decreases combat readiness by an additional 5%. This is the one I'm more keen on, or at least the one I think is probably going to be the best. I'm not somebody who plays fast, who plays flan. So for those of you guys who are cleavers, let me know down in the comments below which one you like the most. But for me, advantageous deal seems like the best because instead of getting 10% CR push for one of your guys, it is a total net of 20% combat readiness pushback for the entire enemy team. So 5 for 4 characters. That to me sounds like a much better swing than the one for Data Monopoly. So yeah, again, to me, advantageous deal feels like it's the best one. Data Monopoly, I think only really I would try to pick it up if I was using her for some kind of PvE applications, which that's definitely been a thing in the past. Things like Wyvern, for example, you can use Flan there. But yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts on the exclusive equipment. A little disappointed there's not a third one to talk about. Of the two, I think Sinful Angelica is a little bit better because it has two very clearly defined exclusive equipments. Whereas Flan, I feel like, again, only one of them really stands out to me, and it's just a nice change, not so much a amazing change like I feel like some of the Sinful Angelica ones are. So again, let me know down in the comments below what your thoughts are on the exclusive equipments, and then obviously let me know your thoughts on Eligos. Would love to hear any and all of them. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week, and I'll catch you all in the very next video. Have a good day now.